There is a place, not here or there, but somewhere in between. There is a space in the thin air that really can't be seen. If you listen and observe, you may be surprised. Some may call it Camelot or even paradise. Some may say you cross a bridge, others through a door. But all I know about this place is that I call it Evermore. Evermore.
Good evening, sweet spirits. Welcome to the show. My name is Suzanne Sorrell, and I'm the host of the Evermore Paranormal Network. On this episode, we're trying something new. We're calling it Guest Lecture Series. And tonight, we are honored to have our first guest here for this series, and that is Mike Stevenson, the Paranormal Man. Please welcome him to the show.
Hi everyone, Mike Stevenson here from the Paranormal Man organization, and we're here to start a series of lectures. And when you start with a series of lectures, I feel that the best place to start is at the beginning. And that basically is, how do you investigate? There's so many people out there today doing investigation in the paranormal. And although many methods and different ways of doing things could possibly work, but truthfully, what I like to say is, I can walk to California, but I'd certainly like to take a plane because it's a lot faster. And for that reason, a lot of techniques that people use aren't necessary in some cases. Again, without trying to step on anyone's toes, if your system works, your methodism works, fine, stay with it. But basically, what I want to talk about here is the simple fact that investigating the paranormal, which is a term that we use, because really it's all part of a supernatural, the investigating techniques that you use is what gives you what you have in results. And there are many things that people do that don't necessarily make a difference, but why do them then? And in addition to that, you got to remember who and what you're investigating. Now, of course, we're talking about investigating spirits. And let's start with, what is a spirit? Well, a spirit is a person whose body is no longer with them. Now, they could be good or bad, and they could be a devilish person or a good person. Who they were and what they were in the beginning, when they were alive, living their lives, who they made themselves to be, is who they are now. Because once you die, the spirit remains the spirit of that person. And you got to remember, that's who we're investigating. That's who we're talking to. So the first thing to learn is to be respectful to them. If you want to get good communication between you and the spirits, you're going to have to make sure that you do it in a respectful manner. Just in as real life, no one is able to hold a conversation with another person if we're rude, or we stop them if they're talking where we want to take over. What you want to do is hold a conversation, and that's easily done. Just remember that, number one, we're going to start with the fact that in investigating a person or trying to get an EVP, as you call it, well, I use the term EMI, it's a little more scientific, because actually what we're hearing is electromagnetic waves. And those electromagnetic waves are the same waves that come from your brain, and they're brainwave patterns. And they have ways in a hospital to monitor these waves, and these waves are what the person has now as a spirit, and that's how they're communicating with you. A lot of people will say, well, we don't really know for sure how they're communicating. Well, we do know this much. They don't have a mouth. They don't have ears. So how are they communicating? Well, they are energy, and as energy, they convert this energy to a method that can be recorded. This is how and why their voice gets on a recording device through a microphone. And you say, oh, well, it's a microphone. Yeah, it is. But if you really understood how a microphone is constructed, it's a coil with a magnet, and as you send a magnetic wave to the microphone, not a percussion wave. When I'm speaking right now, I'm moving the air, and moving that air is moving the air in my ear and in other people's ear, and that vibration moves the eardrum, which varies an electrical impulse to your brain, and we interpret that as speech. So that's how we communicate. The spirits don't have that. They don't have that at all. So they can't use a mouth. They don't have a mouth. So how are we able to hear what they have to say? It's through the electrical impulses that they send out to us. The brainwave patterns that they can develop by being basically a ball of energy. Because energy can be changed in form, never destroyed or created. Only the creator can do that. But we're getting down to how they're communicating with us is through these electrical impulses. And I'm going to talk more about that at a later time. But I want to get back into investigating techniques. There's a lot of people out there who love to have spirits perform for them. Thinking back now, if you're there and someone's investigating you, and someone says, prove to me you're here, turn on my flashlight. And you're going to say, why would I want to do that? You know, I'm not in a circus. Why should I perform? You're not going to give me a treat for performing. So why should I even do that? Well, honestly, thinking to them, this is the same thing they're going to think. So really, don't do it. And I'll tell you another thing about the flashlight thing. It's actually false, because you can take any flashlight and turn it so it's just turned off and let it sit on a table or something, and you don't have to say a word. In fact, if you want, you could put a camera on it. Try this experiment at home. Put a camera on it, walk away, and leave it go by itself. And lo and behold, what you're going to find is at different intervals, this flashlight will turn itself on and even turn itself off, because the electricity going through the metal, the wiring, the spring inside the flashlight where it holds the batteries, as the electrons go through that, it does create amount of heat. Very small, you really aren't even to be able to detect it with your hand, but it is enough to turn it on and turn it off. So as the metal expands and contracts, this is what is making the light go on and off.
My journey skating for the gold taught me a lot, but my journey with breast cancer has been one of my greatest teachers.
Every woman's breast cancer is unique. Be Wiser educates and empowers women to take control of their breast cancer treatment plan and help navigate their own path beyond 5 years.
Talk to your doctor about information and tests to personalize a treatment plan that fits your needs. I did. Be informed, be wiser, support survivors like us.
Okay, everyone, we were just talking about the flashlight thing that a lot of people try to use. And like I said, you can test this yourself. It will turn itself on and off by itself without anyone saying anything. So it's just coincidental that you're asking a question and you think you're getting an answer. It don't really work. It's not really good evidence. It's not best evidence. And scientifically, it's been proven that it doesn't really work. So again, why do that? And getting back to the people or person to whom you're investigating, remember too that you don't want to take too large a group of your group and have them in the same room. What I have found through many investigations and also investigations with other people that have correlated their evidence, when you have more than 3 people in any room, you have difficulty getting a communication from the spirits. And there's a very good reason for this. Like I said earlier about them sending out electrical impulses of which your equipment, and sometimes you hear that yourself. That's how people are clairvoyant. They're actually hearing through the inner ear, not their ear itself, but the inner ear. They're hearing these electrical impulses. It's difficult to really tell whether it's coming from the ear or inside where your brain is, because you think you're hearing it through the ear, but it's not. It's really the inside. But we'll get into more of that too. But right now, I want to talk about the fact that if you keep the number of people in a room smaller, you'll have better EVP sessions, you'll have better communication. And this is what you really want to do. Now, the reason behind it not working well with a large group in the room, well, think of yourself and a friend, and you need to hold a conversation with each other, and you're at a rock concert or some other affair where there's a lot of noise going on, and you can't hear each other think, much less hear your conversation. Well, this is exactly what happens when you get a group of people together investigating at a place, even if it's extremely haunted. You're not going to get communications because there's too much background noise. Remember now, the spirit being a ball of energy that is their soul, if there are more than one voice going on around them, they're not going to be able to tune them out. It's the same as you're driving down the road in your car and you're listening to a certain station and you pass by another station and you start getting the voice from the other station and it overrides what you're getting. So you're not able to understand either one because everything's coming in at once. Well, that's what it is to them. And you're going to say, well, how do I know this? I know this because through scientific investigation and evaluation of the evidence, it shows that more than 3 or 4 people in a room, you don't really get communication. So I'm not going to discount any situation where you might want to go out and investigate or visit a haunted place where there's 40 or 50 people walking through. Yes, if you sit there and take pictures, yes, it's quite possible you could get something on your camera. But truthfully, more than likely, you're not going to have a good EVP session there because of the fact that with too many people talking at once, the spirits cannot determine what you actually said if you're asking them a question. So for this reason, as a good technique, don't have too many people in the same room or in the same area. I don't know, I don't have any scientific data on what the limit as far as how far away they can be from you and still understand what you're saying. But I do know that at least from, let's say, a room-wise, a regular standard room, we'll call it 12 by 12 room, for instance, the area of that room and maybe just outside that room, to me, seems to work best as a communication. I have gotten several good EVPs from inside a 12 by 12 room and just outside of the 12 by 12 room. In one particular case even, I received the information in 2 different recording devices at the same time. And by the fact of how strong the signal was, the voice that was recorded, it tells me which recording device was closer to the spirit speaking. And at that time we actually did have a bit of visual where we were looking at a sign that was lit by a small flashlight, and at the same time I received the audio. We could no longer read the sign. It was sitting on a chair telling us not to go in that room because actually the roof was leaking. So in this particular case, we were able to correlate the fact that at the same time the light in that room got covered up that's when the audio was coming through, and it was coming through in the same direction. So this was a scientific test, and it proved each other's point. So it's always good too to have a camera recording while you're doing your audio work, so you can help figure out what went on and what happened, and you can distinguish whether it's a false EVP or not. Maybe someone whispered something to tell the other person there, a message or something. It may not have been an intentional breaking of the rules, we'll call it, but you know, they're still communicating. But when they do, make sure that what you're hearing is the recording from the spirit you're talking to. So what we've covered here is the fact that you don't want to have too many people in the same room, or at least in the vicinity of that room, so that you can get the recording from them and they'll be able to hear you better without covering up everything that is being said. Because you can also mess up what's coming in from them. If you have more than one spirit, that could mess up your recording. So you want to be careful of that. All right?
Losing weight's a lot harder than gaining it, but with every step, I lower my risk for type 2 diabetes and heart disease, and that makes every step very much worth the effort.
Learn how you can help stop diabetes. Visit checkupamerica.org or call 1-800-DIABETES.
Okay, now we reviewed about not making them do tricks. We've also reviewed about not having too many people in a room. So you want to remember these things. These are some techniques that really do work. We've tested them over and over again. And I'm going to also add the fact that one thing I've found people sometimes do is they want the spirit to curse or something, say bad language or using bad language at them. You don't want to do this. Believe me, if you don't like it, what makes you think they would like it? I've actually been on investigations where I've heard people say, unless you say the B word, I'm not going to leave, I'm going to keep, well, you don't want to do that, really. It doesn't present you as a good investigator to them, because really all they have left, their life is over, their spirit now is in the spirit world. What they have is memories. So you want to discuss the memories, not make fun of it, not make fun of them, not make fun of what they did or who they were, but the best thing to do to get your conversation going with them is if you have some information about who lived there or what the place did, if it was a store or a factory or something, talk a little bit about what it was done there, what was they may have made there, or what the people did when they lived there. You could start a conversation with this type of information, and you want to do that because if you strike up a conversation with someone in the spirit world and talk a subject of which they're not only familiar with, but something that they enjoy talking about, they'll be more apt to talk with you. And this is a proven fact. I have a lot of evidence on this, that you get them in a conversation, you get them talking to you about something they enjoy talking about, they're really more apt to talk with you and return a conversation. And sometimes it's even best, unlike talking with a person in real life, and when I say real life, I'm talking about, in body form. We always try not to talk to someone in the middle of a conversation because you're lost, you don't know where it's at. But doing this as an intro to an EVP session works very well. Bring up a conversation about something that they did or someone may have did there, or talk about, let's say if you're in a church, you want to talk about a minister or something, or priest or someone who was in the church. If it's in a factory, let's say the factory made suits. Talk about suits. Well, last time I was around this place, I seen when the store was open, they made really nice double-breasted suits. Did you work on any of those suits? This is the type of thing you want to do. You want to strike up a conversation with them, and you'll more than likely get good information back. And this is a good thing to do. It really is, because it kind of proves that the EVP you're getting is for real. Because there are skeptics out there that say, well, what you got was part of somebody's radio show. But if it's not the same items that normally is there, yeah, you could see that. But if you have a conversation going, or start a conversation about an object, a place, a thing that pertains to that building, pertains to that person, and you get a response accordingly, it's pretty much best evidence that this was a real EVP. Now, I'm going to cite a really good example. I was once at the Dr. Samuel Mudd's house, and they were doing a session in the kitchen. And they were using a device, which we can get into at a later time, called an obelisk, which actually speaks, okay? And the spirits manipulate it, but we'll get into that later. But I walked in, and I had my bag of equipment sitting on the floor. Everyone was sitting at a kitchen table. And I bent over to get something out of my bag, and they pointed the device in my direction. And lo and behold, the device said the word short. And I, of course, responded with the words, yes, bent over like this, I am short. So then they asked me, well, would you like to participate in this EVP session? And I said, well, I would, but there's no seats. All the seats are taken. So I said, well, where can I sit? The device said posterior. Now, remember now, I was at a doctor's house. That's not a normal word anyone would use, but it was definitely right on for the conversation. Again, this is showing best evidence. And the fact that everyone else stopped talking for the moment in order for me to speak shows that they knew the proper methodism to use. So this is how the conversation went over to me, but a simple fact that they stopped talking and allowed me to talk and ask questions. So the spirit spoke. Now, I'm not really sure who it was. It may have been Dr. Mudd. I didn't stay there long enough for that session to actually have a conversation going with them. But the concept here, the idea here that I'm trying to bring out is the fact that they will contact you with words or phrases that pertain to them, and you respond in the same way. And in this way, you'll have a conversation going. And it will be best evidence because it will be what type of words, what type of sentences a spirit or person who, when they were alive, what they would say. So these are some of the methods that you really need to follow when you do an investigation. You just don't want to haphazardly walk into a place and expect them to start speaking to you, because you're intruding. So if you want to be part of an investigation, you got to make sure that what you say, what you do, is something that is going to be interesting to them enough that they will want to stop doing whatever it is they're doing and actually hold a conversation with you. So these are some very key points, very important points, that if you follow these procedures, every time you do an investigation, you'll find you get very good results. And I do, because I do it often this way, but people who have followed my suggestion as far as this type of methodism, I sent them out into places, or they've gone into places, and lo and behold, they got good results, more than they normally did. And this is all why. So I thank you very much for having me here tonight. Hopefully we can continue on at another lecture.
So thank you for watching the Evermore Paranormal Network. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, peace out.
So in the end, what have I said is only that I'm sure. For all I know about this place is that I call it Evermore.